Welcome into week 4 of the Players Club. Jim Dunaway, Lance Taylor, and with us, joining us from his studios around the world, wherever he's traveling this week, our buddy Mick Gillespie from Bama Insider. Mick, how you doing this week, buddy?
Good, man. I'm at Rocket City Stadium up here in Madison, Alabama, the Toyota Field. That's the background. So,
yeah, getting a football game up there pretty soon with Jack State and North Alabama. They're going to play a game up there. You're familiar with our sponsor here in the Players Club. Before we talk football, our friends with the Golden Moon Hotel Casino in Philadelphia, Mississippi. You get the Sportsbook at Timeout Lounge over there. Just a 2-hour drive from Birmingham. You've been there before, Mick. You love this place, don't you? It's a great place for the sports fan to go watch the games.
Oh, it's great. I mean, it's like Las Vegas, but it's, 2 hours from Birmingham or less. You got the kiosks, you got the VIP terminals, the retail stations, and you can do college football, baseball, U.S. Open, anything worldwide, NASCAR, golf, the Live Tour and PGA. You got to say those both now, right? And guys, if you bet $50, you get to play Dancing Rabbit, which is their awesome golf course over there for $30. That goes through March Madness. So it's pretty cool.
Yeah, man, it's a great deal. The Sportsbook at Golden Moon Casino. Play the game. Let's jump into the games, and we'll start early, 11 a.m. I was down for Penn State, Auburn. That game didn't go the way I thought it would go. Missouri at Auburn, 11 a.m. on ESPN. Mick, I'll start with you. How do you gauge this Auburn team going into this weekend? They seem to be a little rattled right now.
Well, for those of you that watched last week, you know that Auburn's who I thought they were, right? I mean, I picked Penn State. I felt good about Sean Clifford, and it was a lot worse than I thought. But with that said, I wasn't surprised that Penn State went in there and took care of business. This is an interesting matchup because there's a big fire down on the plains right now. And it kind of reckons me back to my days at Alabama when Mike Shula was the coach and the Iron Bowl. I was hanging out at Galette's and somebody had this Auburn fans. They had this Auburn fans for Mike Shula shirt. I'm a Brian Harsin guy. I mean, now I love Brian Harsin, right? Brady Cook's coming to town. A touchdown, 3 interceptions this year for Missouri. He's thrown for 329 yards. Auburn, Tank Bigsby, still Tank Bigsby. I know they got all the problems at quarterbacks. Zach Calzada, as you guys said on your show, he's going to do shoulder surgery instead of being able to play. The other quarterback's dad's talking smack. He could do a better job. It really feels like Auburn's got to circle the wagons. And they're also giving up 7 to Missouri in this early game. But Tank Bigsby still 3 touchdowns, about 200 yards. Javarius Johnson's good. Auburn 7-7 against the spread at home in its last 14, 9-9 against the spread in its last 18 conference games. Missouri's bad against the spread, 3-8 in their last 11 conference games. They're 9-25 in their last against the spread in their last 34 games. I mean, it just keeps going. Auburn's 6-1 against the spread and its last 7 following a straight up home loss. I know that this is crazy, right? But I think Auburn's going to have a pretty big day on the ground. I think they're going to cover the 7.
Yeah, I agree with Mick on that one. LT, I'll bring you into the conversation now. Missouri at Auburn. And it seems like a very important game for both coaches.
No, it is a very important game for Drinkwitz and obviously Harsin. I was wrong when we recorded last week. I thought Auburn's home field would give them a slight advantage. I ended up staying away from the game on Saturday. I didn't give it out. Ended up giving out 7 games. It was not one of them. You talk about you think Auburn's going to have a big day on the ground. You go back, Missouri's sitting at 2-1. Their one loss, they went to Manhattan to take on Kansas State. They got beat 42-10. And one of the reasons Deuce Vaughn ran up and down the field, I just wonder, is Tank Bigsby going to get the football? I mean, 0 touches in the second quarter against Penn State. Jarquez Hunter's got half of Auburn's touchdowns, 5 of their 10 touchdowns. Brady Cook is an elusive quarterback. He's not great, but he is a guy that can run. I mean, already 26 attempts, over 6 yards per carry. There's a little versatility with that Missouri offense. True freshman Luther Burden III is coming into his own, 177 all-purpose yards last week. I think it's going to be a flat crowd. You're giving me 7.5 points. Anything over a touchdown with this Auburn offense, which is non-existent right now, I will take. We knew the Auburn offense was bad. I had no idea Penn State would go 232 on the ground, though. So I just don't know where Auburn is mentally. I know the crowd's going to be flat for this 11 o'clock game, so I'll take the points.
So you'll take Missouri plus the 7.5 there. So 2 Auburn and 1 Missouri. Again, mine doesn't count. I'm the layman. These guys are the pros. As we do the Players Club this week, don't forget lanceslock.com. You can check out all his plays, including a free one every day at lanceslock.com, a longtime sponsor of the Players Club. Let's go 2:30 CBS. It's Florida and Tennessee at a checkered board Neyland Stadium. LT, I'll start with you. Tennessee giving 10.5 as we record this.
Well, this is interesting because Florida's won 16 in the last 17 matchups, and now Tennessee's favored 10.5. They've never been favored by more than 5 points over Florida since 1978. So not only do you go from being a dog in all these games and losing all these games straight up, but now you're a double-digit favorite. But I do think Tennessee's that much better than Florida. I don't know if you guys realize this, but Anthony Richardson looked so good week 1 against Utah and making those plays in the fourth quarter. Anthony Richardson now has more tackles, or the same amount of tackles as he has touchdowns this year.
Oh, no.
3 tackles for Richardson, 3 total touchdowns. Florida is one of 3 schools to yet have a passing touchdown. And on the other side, Hendon Hooker has been lights out. Touchdown passes in 15 straight games since becoming a starter. This is a guy that I think 42 touchdowns and only 2 interceptions and completing 68% of his passes. So much better quarterback. I don't think Florida's got the offense to keep up with him. I'll lay the 10.5.
Okay, you're laying the 10.5. Listen, some question about the health of Cedric Tillman. I think they win the game without Cedric Tillman, but can they cover 10.5 without Cedric Tillman? Is that a concern for you at all, whether Cedric's in the game or not? Mick?
For me personally, or you, I think it is a concern, but you go, Lance.
Okay, start us off, Lance. You concerned about Cedric?
I mean, look, Tillman is obviously a big play guy for them. But again, I think Hendon Hooker is such a good quarterback. You know, I think Brew McCoy could have a really, really good game here. Their ability to run the football right now. I still think Tennessee wins this game going away, even without Cedric Tillman.
What about you, Mick?
Yeah, look, I kind of echo the same thing that LT's saying, right? Look, I hate giving up 10.5 points to Florida, but Tennessee knows the formula. You know, week 1, Anthony Richardson's running all over the place, right? Utah, they didn't account for him. They didn't keep him in the pocket. Then all of a sudden, here comes Kentucky. He gets 4 yards on the ground as opposed to almost 200. And guess what? He doesn't throw the ball well in the pocket, right? Florida has to run the ball to win the football game. 212 yards average per game, 8 touchdowns coming in, 600 over the last 3 games. They average 6.4 carries per yard. Tennessee knows that. And they've been saying that all week, that they've got to keep Richardson in the pocket. He doesn't have a throwing touchdown this year. As a matter of fact, you mentioned it. He's had to make more tackles than touchdowns, right? 4 interceptions for him, and he's only hitting at 53% of his attempts, right? How did Virginia Tech give up on Hendon Hooker? How did they let this guy walk out? Yep. You know, when you look at what this guy's doing right now, 70% throwing, 6 touchdowns, no interceptions. You look at what he did last year. I think that he's one of the top candidates for the Heisman, and Vegas loves Tennessee. You know, they're like one of the teams outside of we always make the college football playoff group that is getting a lot of respect right now as far as a team that could get to the national championship game and win it. Now, it's probably not going to happen. They're not going to beat Alabama or Georgia most likely, but this game right here in checkered Neyland, like you said, forget about the fact that Florida has beaten Tennessee on the road 7 of the last 8 games. Tennessee scores 30-plus points a game. They've done that 6 straight games. They're going to do it a 7th straight game. Florida's not going to be able to keep up with Tennessee. And if Cedric Tillman isn't in there, Hendon Hooker will find somebody else to throw the ball to. Jabari Small is going to run the ball on the ground. I wouldn't even be surprised if Hooker maybe ran in a touchdown or 2. I love Tennessee in this game. I think that this is a coming out party for the Vols. They're a program that's on the rise right now. I'm bought in, and I think it's going to be a big day at Neyland Stadium on Saturday.
Yeah, across the board here with Tennessee in that one. Mick Gillespie, Lance Taylor, Jim Dunaway, Mick, part of Bama Insider on 3 Sports. That gets us to game number 3 of the Players Club here. And game number 3 is going to go out west. We're going to go to Pullman, Washington. We saw a great Bo Nix effort last week. and Oregon went out and scored a lot of points, and they did it at home against a good BYU team. Now they're on the road giving 6.5 against a Washington State team that has already beaten Wisconsin. This is a good game. Mick, start us off here. Oregon, Washington State. Who do you like?
Well, look, first off, I got to throw a shout out to Bo Nix. Of all the NIL guys who are in college and they're doing interviews on your show and other shows, him on your show last year was the only one, in my opinion, that was really good. He was great. I made a fan out of me. I mean, like, he actually comes on and says stuff, right? The guy is, and he tries to back it up on the field. I like Bo Nix a lot. It's still shocking to me that he's at Oregon just with his dad and growing up an Auburn super fan and everything else. And he had a great game to beat BYU last week. The Cougars, kind of one of those early season surprises, right? You got the transfer quarterback Cameron Ward. They had the upset win over Wisconsin, but the Ducks have won the last 2 games that these teams have played by 14 points. I really like the way that Bo Nix has kind of fallen into this Dan Lanning team, this offense. The Cougars are only giving up 12.7 points per game, which has them ranked 19th best in D1. But I think Bo Nix and the Ducks are going to get things done, and I think they're going to win this game. I hate giving up road points. I always take the home dog, or at least most of the time. But I'm going with Bo Nix this week.
All right, so he's riding with Bo and the Ducks on the road. What about you?
Hey, en route to our 6-1 last Saturday, we did have the Ducks. We laid the 3.5 against BYU. They scored on their first 6 possessions. I said this with the 5 total touchdowns, maybe the best overall game I've seen Bo Nix play at the collegiate level. He was fantastic. Now he goes on the road, and home Bo, road Bo, different story. Cameron Ward has not been lights out like a lot of people thought he would be, but I think he's getting more comfortable in this offense. And as you said, the Cougs are leaning on defense, only giving up a little over 12 points per game. I like the Cougs catching 6.5 in this spot. I think this is a solid play. They're 10-2 against the number, their last 12 against Oregon.
All right, so you're going Washington State. Mick and I will jump on the Ducks. So far, Mick and I on Auburn. You've got Missouri. We all agree on Tennessee, and we're split right there. Mick and I on Oregon. You've got Washington State. And I'll remind you right now, the Players Club every week brought to you by the great folks at the Sportsbook and Timeout Lounge. That's at the Golden Moon Hotel and Casino in Philadelphia, Mississippi, less than 2 hours from Birmingham, Alabama. Sportsbook at the Timeout Lounge. It offers that Vegas-style sportsbook, traditional sports betting, all right there locally, just 2 hours from right here in Birmingham. Wager on all the big sports that you love right there. And don't forget, from now until March Madness, you can bet $50 and play around at the beautiful Dancing Rabbit Golf Course, known as the Augusta of Mississippi. You can play that for just $30 if you bet and play $50 right there at the Sportsbook at Golden Moon Casino. Go play the game over there at the Dancing Rabbit and a lot more. Glad to have them on board sponsoring the Players Club. Halfway through our slate of games, let's go to neutral site game, Arkansas and Texas A&M. Personally, I feel like the better team is getting points on a neutral site here. Arkansas getting 2.5, A&M giving up 2.5. I'll start with you. Max Johnson's now the quarterback. Did the Aggies look better offensively to you last week?
Maybe a slight bit better, but still only 16 first downs, 264 total yards. Max Johnson was 10 of 20, 140 yards. Big thing is they played clean football. They didn't turn the football over. They escaped with a 17-9 win. I laid the 6.5, so we were able to get a win with A&M last week. But I'm flipping it. I agree with you. I think Arkansas is the better team. They physically dominated A&M last year up front, winning that game 20-10. Raheem Sanders is running out of his mind right now on defense. Bumper Pool and Drew Sanders are playing great. Arkansas right now leads college football. Leads the country in sacks with 17. I think this defense is going to be too much for the Texas A&M offense. I think Max Johnson struggles in this spot. Much better quarterback on the other side in KJ Jefferson.
Mick, what about you in this big game in Arlington?
Everything tells you that you got to take Arkansas. Through the first 3 games, the Aggies offense has been terrible. They switched quarterbacks. Max Johnson was okay, but they still were 4 of 12 on third downs against Miami. 264 yards these days is not good football. I mean, it's just not enough on offense. Arkansas has moved the ball on the ground. They're going to beat you. They're going to beat you up on the line of scrimmage, they're going to burn the clock, and they're going to try to run the clock down. They're 10th right now nationally in rushing yards. They're running for 243 plus yards per game. And you got Raheem Sanders and then the quarterback, KJ Jefferson. He's a load. He was, I still think of how good he was last year against Alabama. He's good. He's ran for 6 of the 8 touchdowns that they've scored. Texas A&M, though, their defense came up with a lot of big plays last week against Miami when they had their backs up against the wall. They were able to do some things. It's just their offense that you worry about. And Arkansas is number 1 nationally with 5.7 sacks per game. I mean, they're in the backfield constantly. Raheem Sanders, 2nd in the SEC, 4th nationally in total rush yards. I feel like Texas A&M could win this game because they have better players, but Arkansas is the better team, neutral site. And I think when you're at Arkansas, that these games against Texas and Texas A&M, they're circled on the calendar, and I'm going to go with Lance on this one. I think it's going to be Arkansas. They're just a better club.
Yeah, I agree with all of you on that. I like Arkansas in this game as well. Lance'sLock.com. Don't forget Mick Gillespie, who's with us every week from Bama Insider and On3 Sports. Lance'sLock.com. Go to that website and see all of Lance's plays. A big one in the Big Ten, or at least it always seemed to be, but I think it's been something like 17 years since Wisconsin has won in Columbus. Wisconsin at Ohio State. Ohio State giving up 18.5. This number's only moved a half point. It looks like an Ohio State beatdown. It smells like an Ohio State beatdown. LT, will it be an Ohio State beatdown?
I'm still shocked at what happened to Ohio State against Notre Dame in week 1, because I thought this was going to be one of the best, or probably the best offense in all of college football, and one of the best per point games that we've seen in the history of college football. And since then, I mean, they looked the part. 10 touchdowns last week. C.J. Stroud has been amazing. Trevion Henderson's a little banged up right now. Marvin Harrison Jr. has been really, really good. You look at Ohio State, and you're right. Wisconsin hasn't beaten Ohio State since 2010. They haven't beaten a Power 5 school this year. They already lost to Washington State. Jim Leonard's got a really good defense. They're only giving up a little over 8 points per game, but I don't think anybody really can slow down this Ohio State offense, minus that weird game against Notre Dame. I'm going to lay it here. It's a big, big number. It's a really good Jim Leonard defense, but I still think way too many weapons. Ohio State 9-3 against their number, their last 12 against Wisconsin. I'll make it 10-3. I'll lay the points here with the Buckeyes. I'll take Ohio State minus the 18.5.
Mick, you rarely expect Wisconsin's offense to test the creativity of another defensive coordinator, but I'm interested to see the Knowles defense at Ohio State, what they do with the running game, and maybe an opened up Graham Mertz in this game. Who do you like, Wisconsin or Ohio State?
There was a movie that came out. Pauly Shore was in it called Encino Man, right? They thawed out this guy. You remember that movie? LT?
Oh yeah. I went. Sad admission here. I saw it at the theater with Brendan Fraser and Sean Astin too.
See, yeah, right. And that's basically Wisconsin. I mean, like they've been in a block of ice from back in the 70s and 80s. And their offense just hasn't changed at all, right? It's like they thaw them out to go play these games, and they look like when they play against teams like Ohio State that they're running in slow motion, right? I just think that C.J. Stroud's going to be too much. You look at his numbers; he's almost at 1,000 yards right now. Williams has 207 yards on the ground. Harrison Jr., you talked about him. He's closing in on 350, 5 touchdowns. Ohio State leads the all-time series 61-18-5. And the last time these two teams played was the 2019 Big Ten championship game, 34-21. And I thought that was, a game that maybe Wisconsin could have at least a little bit better on offense, hang in there. But, you're looking at the number 18.5. It's at Ohio Stadium. That's a lot of points to give up, but it's Encino, man. Their offense is just it's way back. It's not to today's game, and I think that Ohio State will end up taking care of business and covering that spread. I hate giving up the points.
Yeah, it's a lot of points, 18.5. The number stayed virtually right there. One more game on the Players Club for you today, and it's one that LT's been looking forward to for a few weeks now. It's in Corvallis, so I'll let LT have the last word. USC minus 5.5 at Oregon State. Oregon State getting the points. They've got a little construction, Mick, going on with their stadium, so it won't be a full crowd. It'll be just between 20 and 30,000 fans on mostly one side of the stadium. A weird setting for a 9:30 Eastern, 8:30 Central game. Who do you like, Trojans or Beavers in this one?
Yeah, Beavers are one of the surprise teams, right? I mean, they're 3-0 coming in, and we feel like we don't really know who USC is. And when I saw that it was a 6.5 point spread, Oregon State getting 6.5, I just kept wondering. I'm like, okay, I get it. Look, the Beavers haven't won in LA since 1960, but this isn't in LA. This is on their home turf. What about Caleb Williams? You know, he's been great. Transfers over with his coach from Oklahoma, and the guy's been fantastic. He's completing 74% of his passes. He's got 8 touchdowns. You got Travis Dye, the former Oregon Duck. He's been really good. I mean, 2 touchdowns and 230 yards about for him. And this is a guy that ran for over 3,000 yards and had 21 touchdowns before he even got there. And then Jordan Addison, oh yeah, he just so happened to be the best wide receiver in the country last year. He won the Biletnikoff Award when he was at Pitt. And, he comes in, he's got 18 catches, 300 yards about, 5 touchdowns. I just don't know why the spread's so low. I mean, like I'm taking USC and I'm feeling really comfortable with this. Maybe it's just the fact that there's so many guys transferring. I think maybe we're waiting on Lincoln Riley to trip, but it's not going to happen. This isn't the USC team from last year or the year before. These guys are legitimate. And I think that this is going to be another one of those games where you're going to get in the fourth quarter and you're going to turn it off because it's going to be a blowout.
All right, so 6 for 6, Mick and I agree on every one of these. Everything he just said there about USC.
It makes me nervous.
Okay, I hate to correct you. Oregon State won in the Coliseum last year. I watched that game. It was a complete beatdown. Oregon State is still running.
That one doesn't count. That team had already packed it in.
Yeah, well,
that doesn't count.
It was midway through the season, and this is an Oregon State team that rushed for 322 yards. I know it's a different SC team. They've relied on these forced turnovers. They've been opportunistic. It can't continue, though. And I think they're going to win some shootouts. And, look, I hope they win this game. But I think getting 5.5 points, the number went from 6.5 to 5.5. USC's offense has been lights out, but they're still giving up over 6 yards a carry. And again, Oregon State is a team with multiple backs that can run the football. They're not going to be intimidated. Both of these teams are 3-0 against the number. Something's got to give. But Oregon State, under my man Jonathan Smith, 15-7 against the number as a dog since 2019 with 10 outright wins. I'm not going to be surprised at all. I know I continue to pour mouth my Trojans. They're not as good as billed, though. I think Oregon State keeps this one extremely tight. I'll take the Beavers.
We'll recap all the picks in just a second, but remember the Players Club every week on these platforms, so like and subscribe it. And remember that Golden Moon Hotel and Casino in Philadelphia, Mississippi, just 2 hours from Birmingham, is where you find the Sportsbook at Timeout Lounge. Vegas-style sportsbook there, wager on all the big sports, everything you love to wager on. And from now until March Madness, if you bet $50 in play, that $50 there in the sports book, you have a chance and you will get the opportunity to play Dancing Rabbit, that beautiful golf course, for just $30. You bet $50, you play Dancing Rabbit for $30. That's the deal right now at the sports book at the Golden Moon Casino. Go play the game over there at the Golden Moon Casino. A great place, and again, just a couple hours from right here in downtown Birmingham. Mick and I are all alike, and LT likes 4 of the 6 with us, Mick, so we're not out on a big limb. Auburn and Missouri, that's where LT's different. He likes Missouri. Mick and I like Auburn. We all like Tennessee. Mick and I like Oregon. LT likes Washington State. Actually, 3 I see now. We got 3 different. We all like Arkansas. We all like Ohio State. And then USC and Oregon State. Mick and I like the Trojans, a team good enough to be in the playoffs. And Oregon State is where LT goes. Mick, one final thought on this weekend coming up. Of all the games we talked about, or any other one on the board, is there one you're really looking forward to watching this weekend that maybe we haven't talked about this weekend?
Well, I mean, really, the ones that we talked about are the ones I'm excited about. The Tennessee game. I mean, this is a game where we're seeing maybe 2 teams moving in different directions. I mean, Florida's been okay, but Tennessee's a pretty good, fun team to watch. So I'm excited about seeing what happens there. And look, and if Tennessee lays an egg, then we know that they're not ready to be prime time yet, right? And maybe their program isn't what we think it is and what Vegas thinks it is. But I'm definitely looking forward to seeing that. And, this is one of those weeks where there's some good games. Next week's going to be huge.
Yep.
So just kind of getting there, but I really am looking forward to that. And I do want to see USC because I'm a believer in USC. I think they're their offense is nasty.
Yeah, Clemson, Wake Forest interests me with a Clemson team on the road that's got to show me they can score some road points. Does that one interest you at all?
I mean, yeah, a little bit because, Sam Hartman, all they do is throw the football in Dave Clawson's offense. And you go back, they've lost 62 straight games to top 10 teams. So Wake's typically not good in this situation. And even last year, en route to winning their division and playing for the ACC championship, they still lost this game 48-27. And Clemson ran up and down the field. Clemson, way too many athletes. I watched Wake and how sloppy they were with the football last week against Liberty. So, it'll be an intriguing 11 o'clock game. I think ultimately Clemson too much. The game I'm looking forward to the most, USC, Oregon State, because if USC blows them out in Corvallis,
you'll start saying nice things.
Then I will start to say this team can go to the college football playoff. If Oregon State wins, though, they can legitimately win the Pac-12.
The Sportsbook at the Golden Moon Casino brings us the Players Club. Mick Gillespie, Bama insider on 3 Sports, all of his mini W9s and W2s that he has out there. Mick, thank you for your time. He's Lance Taylor. I'm Jim Dunaway, and that's the Players Club for week number 4.